So, welcome back dear students. We have already started learning about what a structure is. So, we defined a structure as a collection of logically related data items combined as a single unit. So, from there we went on how to create a structure, declare the elements of it, declare the variables, initialize the values and accessing the elements of the structure. So, all these we have seen, and also about certain valid and invalid operations on a structure. So, after this we are now going to move on to learn about nested structure. So, in our plus 1 we have learnt about what a nested loop is. So, a nested loop means a loop which is placed within another loop is known as a nested loop. So, similar way, a nested structure means a structure which is placed inside another structure is known as a nested structure. So, now we will see how it is. An element of a structure may itself be another structure. That is, when you are creating a structure, the element created over there may be another structure itself. Okay. Next, advantage, building of powerful data structures. All these we will be looking into one by one. Constructed in two ways. So, your nested structure can be constructed in two ways. Now, we will see with an example also, that is internal nesting and external nesting. So, as the name itself indicates, internal nesting means a structure is exactly placed within another structure. External nesting means the structure which is to be embedded will be placed outside. So, now we will look into the examples. Now, look into the examples given over here. External nesting and internal nesting. You have two different segments here. See, external nesting, first we will see. The structure that is to be embedded inside is your structure known as date. So, that is to be created first. Okay. The structure which is to be embedded inside is to be created first along with the structure name. So, struct, date, the elements required are created first. Okay. Next, we are going to create the structure known as student. So, inside student you have your admission number, name, and also now you can see that is float, date, admission number is written. So, that becomes your structure being nested inside. Okay. Date, ADM, date, DT underscore ADM. DT underscore ADM is a structure variable. Date becomes your new data type, and then you have float fee. So, this way of creating a nested structure is known as your external nesting, where the structure that is to be nested is placed outside, Now, come on to the right hand side. Now, you have a structure known as student. Okay. There you have your admission number, name as character array, and then struct, date. Now, this part is going to be your nested structure. This is placed within your main structure. Known as student. So, this way of creating a nested structure is known as your internal nesting, that is, which is exactly placed inside another structure. This looks similar to your concept of loops. So, this way of nesting a structure is known as your internal nesting. Is this part clear? So, next. So, next, external nesting is more advisable as it can hold more structure variables. Now, when we were learning the concept of structures, I have mentioned you that a structure can have more than one variable. A structure can have more than one variable. Okay. So, as a structure, same structure could be used to nest with many other structures. As the same structure could be used to nest with many other structures means, that is in the previous example that we have seen. See, now look into this example. That is struct date. So here I can have more variables over there. So what happens is, for example, if you take up the example for a teacher and a student. Okay, teacher and a student. Now we have created a student structure. Similarly, you can create a teacher structure also. There also you need a date as joining date, the date of joining. So the same structure known as date could be used over here, and only thing is you have to create another variable known as join dt. So the same structure which is created and kept outside could be used for two different structures, that is for a student structure as well as a teacher structure. So that is what I tell you, that external nesting is more advisable as it can hold more variables. The structure which is to be nested should be created first with required structure variables. That is what. If we create and keep it first separately and have the required number of variables, so we can nest it in the different structures wherever it is required. Structure tag is essential for both the structures. So structure tag, that is the structure name, is very essential when you do it, whether in internal nesting or in external nesting. Tag is essential for both the structures, that is for the main structure as well as for the structure that is going to be nested. So structure tag or name is essential for the main structure and the nesting structure. Internal nesting is restricted only to that particular structure where it is nested. So as we see this example over here, please come back and see this example. So as I told you, internal nesting is restricted only to this particular structure alone. We cannot make use of this anywhere outside. We cannot make use of this anywhere outside with any other structures. So it is restricted only with this particular structure alone. So structure tag for the inner structure is optional as its scope is restricted. So in this case, having a structure name for the nested part alone is optional because it is restricted only for this particular structure alone. We cannot make use of it for any other structures outside. Scope means its life is restricted only within this main structure. Structure variable is essential to access the elements. So a structure variable is compulsorily needed to access the elements of the structure. That we have already seen how to access the elements. Now we will see how to access the elements for a nested structure. Now we will see how to access the elements for a nested structure. Now look into the syntax. Please look into the syntax. So you have your outer structure variable, outer structure variable dot inner structure variable dot structure element. Outer structure variable dot inner structure variable dot element. So that is how the sequence should move on. Otherwise you will end up with errors. So when you are doing it, you should do it very correctly. The order of sequence, the syntax, you should follow 100%. Otherwise you will end up with mistakes. Okay, so now look into the example for the student. So for the student you had the variable as yes, and for the date structure you had it as dt underscore adm. dt underscore adm is the structure variable for the structure known as date. So how to embed and create the values. So see out S dot ADM underscore NO means that is for the admission number 4325. S dot name, that becomes the value takes up as Vishal. Now you see how to embed the values, how to assess the values or pass the values 10, 11, 1997. As I told you, outer structure variable dot inner structure variable dot element. So outer structure variable is S, dt underscore ADM is the inner structure variable, day is the element. So 10 moves over here. Next, S dot dt underscore ADM dot month. Yes, outer structure variable, dt underscore ADM inner structure variable dot month. So 11 moves over here. S dot dt underscore ADM dot year. So 1997 will move over here. It is dot over there, okay, where S is the outer structure variable and dt underscore ADM is the inner structure variable. So with this we have come to the end of structures concept. Now next we will move on with pointers concept from the same chapter. Keep revising your portions. Thank you.